Good afternoon. Very happy to be here with everyone on stage during this session on fintech. That's what we will talk about because it's actually, I think, the technology that impacts each and every one of us more than probably anything else at this point, right? This is something that we see in our phones, on our screens every single day. This vastly changing way in which we handle our money, in which we get paid, in which we pay our bills. Just before we start, I haven't been in Central Asia for about 5 years, and 5 years ago, you came to these countries in this region, and you had to get money out of an ATM, but that would usually be Western money, and then you had to know someone who brought you somewhere to change it under the counter because the real exchange rate is not the official one. Now, I'm paying everywhere with my Apple Pay bank account from Lithuania, full places. So it's definitely a very important and very big topic to talk about. My name is Max Gervitz. I'm an investor by day. I run a fund in Bulgaria in the European Union called Vitusha Venture Partners. I've been in this investment game for quite some years. Originally an entrepreneur, had a startup in the legal space, and as it very often happens, once you did one startup, you kind of want to do more, but not everything. So I joined the ecosystem building guild, I guess you can call it. Was very lucky to be involved with building up ecosystems as a mentor, as an advisor, as an investor in predominantly the Balkans and Eastern Europe, but also together with Philip, who's here as part of the FGI Future Growth Initiative project. Here we're working. I'm helping the project with some of the know-how we have in Europe, in the West, in Silicon Valley. And hopefully these things are going to be useful for our region. What I'm going to do is have a number of wonderful guests. We have with us from, I think, somewhere in Turkey, either Istanbul or Ankara, or maybe his summer home somewhere else, Oguz. We have here on stage with me Bersan, Timor, and Natya. So what we'll do is I'll ask each one of you to briefly introduce yourself. And then we just go straight into the discussion. Let's keep it actual. Let's keep it interesting. So, Bekjan or Natya, please start.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor for me to be here in Bishkek. I've never been to this part of the world, and I hope to come here more often. As part of the introduction, I will say that I worked in various fields of government in my previous life. Last 10 years I spent as a Chief Legal Officer of the National Bank of Georgia, doing both regulatory and core central bank activities, looking at it from legal side, drafting regulations, etc., etc. And since a year and a half ago, I joined Identomat, where a new startup where we do a software for remote identification of clients. So I've been lucky to have seen, so to say, both parts of this world, and I hope that today's interaction will give me an opportunity to share some of my experiences from both points of view. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Timor Schlekenov. I'm a fully product development guy, and whole my life I try to launch some good digital product, but still trying. And but last 8 years I involved in Fintech area and launched some product in Kazakhstan, in Indonesia, Vietnam, and last 4 years in Russia. But this summer I joined the BTS Digital. It is one of the biggest IT company in Kazakhstan. We try to build a super app with entertainment, with payments, with messaging, and my responsibility in this area is fintech products, and that's all I think.
All right, thank you, Bekjan.
Yeah, thank you. it's a great honor to be here actually, and so I think we all missed to participate in offline events, and so I think I'm a little bit like not used to to do networking some stuff. And so my name is Bigjan, and I work for the Astana International Financial Center's Tech Hub, so which is intentionally created for the development of the tech ecosystem. Before we were working only on the fintech pillar. Now it's from tech, so we are kind of like a widening. So actually, a fintech is kind of like split it into several directions, like insurtech, like invest tech, wealth tech, etc., etc. So it's a very wide, and so we need to understand what's fintech stands for us. So we are developing the fintech ecosystem not only for the Kazakhstan but for the whole region, because when you're selling the whole region, it's more interesting for the investors, for the entrepreneurs, and from the other key players. So I'm in fintech career from 2016 when I joined to AFC. Before I started on developing the fintech courses, fintech education for the market. So I've been conducting some work with the universities, with the educational institutions. Then I moved to development of the fintech ecosystem within the AFC. Now we are providing the several products and services to the market, and we are selling the startup support programs. We are conducting the corporate innovation things. Working with the second-tier banks of Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. So we have some good success cases. But the great thing is we've created the new VC hub for the whole region, and it's for the first case when we connected the convertible notes mechanism for the startups, when the startups can attract money and they can make a good cap table. So and they can they can make a company, incorporate it, and it will be very understandable and very transparent for the whole investors, and it's very easy to do this stuff. So the short story.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bigjan. And let's see if we have a connection with Ogus. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. And can you?
Yes, we hear you perfectly fine. Hi there.
So first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I really wanted to be there, but we're facing an unusual days. So let me quickly start with a quick introduction. And my name is Oğuz, and I am part of Mastercard Advisors. I am a management consultant, and for the last 5 years, I joined Mastercard Advisors team, and we're mostly working for financial institutions, including banks and fintechs, and some new players looking for an opportunity to step into financial ecosystem in Turkey. And it's my pleasure to have a seat around the table today.
Okay, very good. Well, we're very happy to have you, and I'm very happy that the connection works. So we have basically a startup that does technology, right, to do KYC, know your clients, right, to automate compliance. We have a super app representative, people who are building an ecosystem. We have someone who's actually building the startup ecosystem or the investment ecosystem, and we have someone from a card company. I'm going to start with the main question, actually, of this panel. In Dutch, in my language, we say, "We'll shoot the bullet through the church." Are banks dead? What do you guys think about it? Is this it for the traditional banks, or do you have other opinions?
So actually, there is several trends. The first one, I can say that the banking, maybe in the near future, will stay as a banks, as a financial institution, but in the future they will be doing all of the banking thing. And to this journey is also adding up some companies from telco, telecommunication companies, because they have very wide network, so it's very easy to start some financial business to the market because of the coverage. So and the third one is the fintechs, right? So fintechs is coming, and so they are trying to collaborate with the banks, but for the regionally, so we can say that for the Kazakhstan, it's banking sector will be staying alive for a long time, because the banks are trying to conduct some corporate innovations, both internally and they are outsourcing it for them from the market. So they are trying to stay in the market. So they have a very good competition, and they're trying to make cross-border payments, etc., etc. But for the other region of the Central Asia, it's better to go to make a leapfrog, like M-Pesa in Africa, etc. So, but for the Kyrgyzstan, for the Uzbekistan, and for the other countries of Central Asia, it's better to go to the fintechs, and the banks should provide some kind of like a platform for doing that.
If I just follow up on this question, since you guys are both based in Kazakhstan, right, Timur and Bikjan, we all know here in this region that Kaspi is a great example. We just talked before the session about how it's basically, it has a banking license, so it's both basically a bank, but it's very, very innovative. Why would people that have accounts in other banks in your country not just close them and all move to Kaspi? All right. Either of you can answer.
Kaspi already have 9 million customers, and I think all adult people already have one account in Kaspi. But of course, they want to monetize their services. And for example, when Kaspi provide cashback program, it's not so aggressive like other banks. And of course, Kaspi, this is something. This is already not a bank. This is already some IT company. Firstly, it's IT company with bank license, in my understanding. But in Kazakhstan, of course, this is a huge player, and in Kazakhstan, everybody try to understand what happened in Ukraine when Kaspi will come into that market, because that more compatible market with another strong players in Ukraine. For us, it's a really interesting point. But Kaspi created a lot of new markets, like, for example, QR payments. Before 2 years ago, share of QR payments, I think around 1%. But right now, in offline payments, QR is around 65%. And I think international payment system already know it. It's a huge problem for international, for MasterCard, for Visa, because this is a high competitor in that area. And but I think for other banks, the Kaspi not universal bank. With they doesn't have a lot of products like mortgage, like car loans, etc., etc. But they concentrate only in some daily banking activities. And of course, his NPS, Net Promoter Score, so high. And I think for other companies, for other banks, it's really hard to compete with them.
Right. So basically what you're saying is that from the, you mentioned NPS, from the marketing and business development side to consumers, to B2C, right? They're very strong, but the really hard banking stuff in the back, like the guarantees that you must have as a bank, the international exchanges, that's still something that's where the traditional banks are still doing well.
Of course, and they not concentrate. And I think for other banks should concentrate on field what they can do really good, like they should divide the responsibility. For example, in my understanding, traditional bank should be like value storage, and create a lot of APIs for fintech companies, for other marketing activities, like mobile network operator also create the platform for virtual operator, like Tele2 in Russia. They create with a platform and not compete with a Megaphone or with Beeline, etc. They just give the platform for other players like banks, like e-commerce players to compete. And I think in banks area we see also like this picture in next 5 years.
Right, very interesting. I think we have two actually really cool questions, both for Guz and for Natya. But I'll start with you, Natya. From what I understand, the kind of company that you work with, that you're part of, you basically help banks catch up with all these neo banks and super apps and stuff like that. Is that so? Like, do you?
Yes. At Identimat, we create tools for banks to automate their processes, which basically allows them to minimize their operational risks, their operational costs, and therefore increase their efficiency, onboarding time, compliance, etc., etc. So it's a wide range of activities. However, banks. Well, in the description of this session, there was a comparison of banks and dinosaurs. So my view on that is that banks will not die a sudden death like dinosaurs did. They would rather be like mammals. Either they will lose their four.
But they also died.
Yes, or they converted into elephants. So. But yeah, basically the idea behind that is that banks need to move into fintech and need to embrace fintech. Otherwise, they will face certain deaths, especially with the decentralization of value. I'm still weary of calling the cryptocurrencies money. All the central bankers have it, but the states are losing monopoly over currencies. Which means that banks might be on the way of losing their advantage in relation to the lending, for example, which is a new trend in digital currencies. Therefore, yes, I think that eventually, if the banks do not grow closer to the fintech, they will be on the way of dying out. However, those are very flexible institutions. Those are the institutions which have money, they have resources, they have everything that can help them to be more active in fintech and to embrace more innovation into their services. After all, around 64% of consumers say that they do not want to ever go to the bank branch to receive their services. We try to help in that at Identitomat. However, banks themselves need to be more active, and the regulator is the key point. Those are heavily regulated industries, and they need to there needs to be some space for innovation to operate. And by space, I mean, first of all, it's the enabling environment that does not prohibit innovation. Also, if all the risks are covered, there is no development. So the regulators also need to be open about some of the risks that follow the technologies.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's a very interesting battlefield, basically, right, between old and new there within the banks. Guz, if we go to you, when I'm hearing stuff like everybody in Kazakhstan, which is not a small country, has a Kaspi account, in this case, a neobank account with which they pay with QR codes. I think, to me, it sounds like MasterCard is finished. Like, what's your how would you think about that?
I mean, it's a difficult market to crack. We need to admit that. So this is the first thing. But as a MasterCard, and I believe as all the technology companies, we shouldn't be afraid of any competition. So there are things that we should learn from Kaspi in that market. And even for our advisor services for other markets, most of the time we're using Kaspi as one of best practices, because they build something, and just because it's not on card rail, we're not saying that this is a competitor for MasterCard, because we believe that it's just helping us or everyone to grow the economy and providing some services to increase financial inclusion or the cash under the economy, I mean, in the records. So we are not afraid, but yeah, Kaspi is a huge partner. That's what I can say. And we would like to support their business and support the Kazakhstan business, because we believe that there's still rooms to go over there. And since we have a good established player like Kaspi, I think it's not a threat, it's an opportunity for both of us to deliver a good service for end consumers, not for MasterCard and not for Kaspi. That's what we believe. And just for your previous question, this is the trend that we are facing all over the world. So we are facing with innovation, we are facing with disruption in a good way. In telecom companies, in digital world, in retailers, in delivery. Now, and we know that there's a reflection in the financial service as well, which is fintechs and the neobanks, and Kaspi is a good example.
Right. Okay, cool. Very good. That's good to understand. Let's then move to actually another, the next kind of topic. We already talked about this, the regulation. now, if you look at this region, how easy it is. I mean, for you, for instance, Timur, maybe you want to start. You guys are building this entire platform in Kazakhstan, right? If you want to move to another country like Kyrgyzstan, where we are today, to Uzbekistan, how easy or how difficult, how impossible maybe is it? Like, what are the challenges that are regional, maybe specific to this region, if there are any?
In the fintech field, our share in the Kazakh market is so small, and we right now concentrate on our own market. But of course, we understood some relationship between countries, and of course, we need to create some product for this to cover this relationship. But I think from legislation perspective, they I think they have slightly changes, and of course, for example, QIC updated and have done in different countries same regulation. Maybe Bigjan, you know better about it.
Sure. Yeah, Bigjan, what are your thoughts on this kind of like regulatory part of building fintech?
Actually, for the Central Asian countries, like in some cases, like there is a very strict regulation. So for example, in the case of Kazakhstan, so we have two regulators within the AFC jurisdiction, which is based on the English common law principle, and for the Kazakhstani jurisdiction, there is a national bank and there is agency for financial regulation. And in some cases, for example, in Kyrgyzstan, in here, so there is no kind of like a currency act, like, and it's more liberal, and here you can do more stuff than in Kazakhstan because it's more regulated, maybe like over-regulated in some cases. So, but moving from one country to another, when you're trying to like provide your services, like expansion, it's actually easy because of like mindset. So here, if you are doing some stuff, for example, in Kazakhstan, and you want to move to Kyrgyzstan, so they will see that how you're doing your project, like your business within the Kazakhstan, and like what is happening within the like Uzbekistan. So they're trying to make a lot of like reforms, and it's like a good way. So they are choosing a good approach on developing the digitalization of the like the whole country. For the Kyrgyzstan, the central bank, so they launched the last year the sandbox regime, so for testing and piloting the new financial services. And for the Kazakhstan also, we have like two sandboxes from the national bank and from the for the Russia, so Central Bank of Russia also, they launched maybe at the same time, or like in 2019 or 2018. I don't remember the exact date, but the most active is our sandbox. So 35 startups were accepted, and what is our approach is when you're, so we are the neutral territory, and so you can maybe test your services by getting the license from the AFC and to provide services to the Kyrgyz citizens or Uzbek citizens, etc., because like so we need to integrate the markets, and we need to work together, and so we need to find some kind of like a consensus between the regulators of this region. It's making a global financial innovation network where the like world's regulators are joining to make some kind of like innovation for the financial sector and for the standardization of the financial services. Right. So it's not too difficult to enter to this market actually.
Okay. Maybe for the question for Aguz in this sense, like if you are, I mean, from what I understand, you are part of the MasterCard business development in this region. Do you see are there any differences between these countries from your point of view, or in the way your company rolls out various solutions? I mean, you guys do cashback, all kinds of other things. Like, do you see any differences between the Central Asian nations?
Yeah, I mean, we are actually treating and addressing the needs of each and every market in a bespoke way, because in some markets there is a huge inflation and customer demands is, for example, on credit cards, on debit cards, on real-time payments, and in other markets they're debit-oriented and they are looking for digital services and the customer experience of it and the convenience, for example. So And of course, all of these markets are being shaped by the regulations, and each action of the regulation is at different stages. For example, in Turkey, during COVID, the regulator just announced an open banking and the digital banking license. So this is the one thing. And in other markets, for example, like Kazakhstan, banks are, I mean, these kind of things are driven by industry without waiting for the regulation. So yeah, these are the market that we have a different perspective. We have different teams. We have different business development person responsible for each and every market. So each market has different needs, so they need tailored solutions.
Natya, maybe you can give us some Georgia perspective. I'm actually not sure if within Dentomat if it's only Georgia that you work, or do you also look at other countries? But how is the regulatory framework where you work?
Well, we try to work across the globe. We have clients in Georgia, in Ukraine, in the United States, in Cyprus. So many countries, and of course regulations are different, but I haven't seen one country where regulation helped development of the business. So basically, I think that in essence, regulators are that they move slowly, they follow the development of the business, they follow what they see as risks. However, too early intervention into certain development might hinder the development. On the other hand, creation of regulations for something that do not exist are also counterproductive. For example, after 20 years of working in the legal field, I discovered that in Georgia there is a law on commodity exchange. There is no such thing as commodity exchange. So if the regulation, not in Georgia at least. So anyways, but the point is that if the regulator moves too quickly, then it might even mispredict certain things or misregulate certain things. So the important thing about sandboxes, which we have one in Georgia, and our company Identomat has gone through a regulatory sandbox of the National Bank of Georgia successfully. We completed 3 projects there. So these are good opportunities for fintech companies to test their products in the so to say real life environment, whereby the damage control is done by the regulator. This is the way to persuade the clients, future clients, and also the regulator that your product is safe and reliable. And for fintech, I think the safety and reliability is the key word, because there are so many fintech companies around the world. The choice is immense, and the palette is great, and presentations are usually very, very good. So basically what as a fintech company you need to bring to the table is safety and reliability, and sandboxes do provide this to fintech companies. So if the regulator tries to set out each and every detail into the regulation, then I think this regulation is meant to fail, and also is meant to kill the business that it's regulated. So
right.
That's my point.
Sandboxes are actually a very interesting topic. We'll get to that just a little later on the global level for how what Eurasia can be. Maybe a follow-up question on this before we move on. Since at this event we have, let's say, the ear of the governments, right? We have government representatives here, probably in this room as well at the event. People are watching as well. Maybe a wish list, like what would you suggest the governments of these countries, what would be your wish list? And I'll ask each one of you. Maybe we can start with Oguz. He's the furthest away, literally. What would you suggest the government of, let's say, Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan, or it's obviously different in every country, but what would be things that you would like to see from your business's perspective as an implemented change on a legislative policy or policy implementation level?
So, first of all, it's a difficult question, but I can say that what we saw from good practices from all over the world is if you wait for your largest competitors to help you grow, then it's gonna take ages. So just like what we see with open banking or some other regulations, I think for fintechs and for innovation to grow, we need to make sure that the entry barriers are lower. Than it's not just about putting some capital or waiting some great players to offer you some services at some prices. So I think the regulators should be motivating fintechs and some incumbent banks not to compete with each other, but to complement with each other and offer some services through the new technologies and with using API structures. And in the meantime, of course, we should protect the privacy of the customers as well. So I think the prominent focus of the regulations should be delivering the high quality services and in the meantime protecting the customer's privacy. And to do so, I think they should create some maybe environments, forums, working groups that fintechs and some incumbent banks can get together, work together, learn from each other, and just build the new financial ecosystem.
Okay, good. Thank you. Bikran, do you wanna continue?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I also support Luz that definitely we need to go to the open API approach because so data is the new oil of this century. So you can work with the data and you can create any kind of like services. And so, for example, in Kazakhstan, we have 300 different databases, which is not interlinked like closely. So they can communicate with each other, but startups or like fintechs or some banks, others, they cannot have a direct connection and they cannot get that data from the government. So there is also national bank also have their own data, and there's some other institutions which is responsible, for example, for the medical data, it's the Ministry of Health, and for the other data is the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Internal Affairs, etc., etc. So it's all kind of like splitted, and it's when you're building a data lake and you're building an open API approach, so startups can build new kind of like services. Like it will be easier to go to the insurtech, for example, when you're getting a loan from the bank. So you have a very good I don't know how can I say, like rating, credit score. Yeah, you have a very high credit score, and you will be getting the loan, for example, for 5%, and I will get for the 17%, and Timur will get for 21%. Like, so that's approach when the banking providing a money. But when you are making an insurance of health, for example, if I'm smoking or if I'm not doing the like some exercises, etc., then why we should pay the same amount of like insurance fee, right? So when you're getting the data, so you can provide new type of like services. So definitely open APIs and the exchange of data.
Okay. Again, open banking, open APIs. Timur?
Nothing to add, because I also each morning I think about when our banks should provide open API to create to open account, to share the information, because this is information not owner of this information is a customer, not a bank. And of course, if national bank will provide some strong regulation about how open API should look like, it will be much easier for all fintech industry in Kazakhstan or in each other country, I think.
Nata, what about you?
For me, the wish list would be to have enabling environment whereby the state does not interfere too much into what business is doing, and also for the state not to go fixing something that works perfectly well without their participation. So basically, that's my
to leave us alone as entrepreneurs.
Not completely, because I would say that I mentioned trust and safety and reliability as key to development of the fintech, because otherwise it will not go far. Trust involves protection of privacy and ensuring certain ground rules. I would say that the state does not need to go beyond enforcing those ground rules. So that's basically it.
Okay. On this note, so since open banking and open API is such a obviously so high on the desirability list, I don't know if anyone's listening from the European Union here, but in Europe we have a PSD2 protocol, which you guys probably know about, and in some countries, it's very developed now, the implementation of it. In Bulgaria, where I live and work, we're just getting there. So actually, we have a startup, that disclosure I invested in, that is pushing banks now to implement PSD2, because the law says you have to, but since no one pushed them, the banks never did it. But PSD2 it's a protocol for banks to share banking data with accounting apps, insurance providers, et cetera, as Natya, and I think you said it very well. It's the client that still owns the data, not the bank, right? So this is a protocol for sharing that information with other providers. Maybe Europe can do some lobbying and get also non-European countries to use the system. Now, this is not political. This is just an idea. So let's see, maybe. Okay, cool. Maybe since we're almost near the end, we're at 3:40 of our panel. Maybe the last topic, and I think it's actually maybe the most inspirational, maybe the most exciting one. The question what do you guys think? Can this region, Central Asia, can it be a global sandbox, right? Can it be a place where something gets developed that might actually become standard or norm in the rest of the world, right? Before the session, we talked about a very famous example. Many people know it. There was I think Kenyan. It was originally a startup called M-Pesa. They actually introduced SMS payments when, in Africa, when people were living so far from a bank in small villages without roads or communication. There was no internet back then. And people actually started paying each other through SMS messages, and this became a very big thing, I think 20 years ago. Now it's a big, I think, fintech company. They have apps and stuff. People have internet now as well. But this was an innovation that came out of a very, very developing place in Africa. I don't know, maybe other examples. I mean, again, this thing Kaspi in Kazakhstan, like QR codes, we don't have that in Europe, but it seems to work great. So do you guys have any ideas? And feel free to, anyone can start, whether something in this region or maybe in your country, if you're not active here, can be an innovation that can, if successful here, be successful elsewhere in Western Europe, let's say, or Russia.
From the one side, it's definitely yes, because so all countries from Central Asia, they have their own geographical uniqueness. So for the Kyrgyzstan, it's like more mountains, and in some cases for the government is a little bit pricey to go to the rural areas and providing the high level, high speed internet, for example. And for the Kazakhstan, it's also very huge country, and we have also some rural areas where are living under 250 people. So it's also kind of it's really pricey to go there with the internet, with a high speed, or maybe fiber, etc., for the Uzbekistan. So when you're developing the infrastructure, so you can make different types of providing the financial services. For the big cities, okay, QR codes, NFC, tap to phone, etc., it's very easy to penetrate in that type of technology. But for the others, and when you are building not only the fully digital product, and when you're focusing from getting offline to online, and so maybe you can test or make a pilot in that sector. And I guess for the whole Central Asian country, there is very liberal regulation for conducting that type of testings. Yeah.
Cool. Wonderful.
I think yes, of course. Some innovation in our countries can be very useful in other countries. For example, 7 years ago, when we discussed about payments in a mobile network operator in Kazakhstan, we also also educate, also see the case in Pakistan, because it's also in our group of company, and we see how mobile operator without ATM network use his own branches like ATMs points, when everybody can withdraw money from his airtime account. It's easier, and after that we launched such services in Kazakhstan. Right now, for example, also QR payments, it's also really important, and in my understanding, if somebody in our market will win Kaspi, it will be another big case for the education. And also I think last 3 years in Harvard MBA program, they educate Kaspi cases, and I think it's also some point how that region can be global sandbox for the global innovation. I don't know.
Well, absolutely yes. I think that this region has huge potential, huge talent, and population, which I think is sufficient to test any idea in this region. Again, it will probably require a lot of cooperation between fintech and already developed traditional businesses like financial industry, and also the government again to enable such innovation. Other than that, I don't see any obstacles to that.
That's wonderful. It's very optimistic. Thank you. August, do you want to share yours?
Actually, I mean, all the critical points already addressed, but yeah, it seems like we have the potential in the market and in the region, and also we have a good track record. Everyone, I mean, including me, mentioned about the Kaspi because it's a great example. It dominated the market. It's a huge technology company, and for example, when I meet with some retailers, they're asking about Kaspi because they consider their super app vision is great, and when we ask. When we meet with incumbent banks, for example, they're asking about their digital vision. So they already proved their track record in several different competition zones. And now we know that it's a huge market, for example, Kazakhstan, and we sure that there are more to come. So I can see a reason why not.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I wanted to add that. So what's the approach, right? So you are testing the technology, you are testing the market, or you're testing the business process, etc., etc. So, and from the other, like from these different fields, you can, I guess, like both test the business models, new business models when you are trying to provide absolutely new services. So, and from the other side, like when some business process is working in one region of the planet, it totally like absolutely not working in other region. So in some cases, we need to understand like what you want to test from your side.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground here. I think we all agree that banks are not quite dead yet. And this is, by the way, a very interesting perspective that you guys have, because in the West, there's a lot of talk of banks being dead. Sometimes you really think that might be the case, but I think that this is a very very down to earth, very realistic assessment that you gave also on how much value actually banks give. Maybe being very customer unfriendly, but still with a lot of back end that no app can really solve yet. So let's not bury the banks yet. I think it was very interesting what we discussed about the wish list of the governments, and I think that we can agree that open banking is probably the highest thing on that list. So hopefully the governments are listening and at least are willing to engage in learning what open banking is. We're not born with that knowledge. We have to educate our friends in government. But this is, I think, an important point. And I think the biggest optimism for me is that indeed solutions. I've talked about this with people outside this panel as well. That with countries like Kazakhstan and hopefully more countries in this region, once stuff like QR payments and other more innovative solutions are so widespread, it might actually be an export product from this region to this world, right? So this is I think very exciting. Maybe just one last word, if anyone wants to say anything, or is there anything that you want to mention that you did want to mention but I never asked you about? Just a little last round, if you guys want. Feel free to skip as well. August, do you want to share anything else for this audience?
all I can say is thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure to learn from other perspectives and to just have a seat around the table. And I think all the innovation points from regulation point of view and from fintech point of view, and also as you mentioned, we are not saying that like the old players are an enemy. We're saying that there's a new world coming up, and let's shape it. Great message. Thank you.
Okay, well, good to have you. Hope to see you in person next time. Natya?
Well, thank you for having me. I just hope that I will be coming here more often as a representative of my company to, test our product in Fintech Sandbox here in Kyrgyzstan.
Very good. We hope so too. Timor?
Thank you for such interesting moderating, Max. And from my side, I just want to participate in next event. And but in next event, we will try to focus or demonstrate our new products, because our company right now try to focus on social impact product. And in our understanding, only that kind of orientation will be successfully in the market with the high competitive market. And I think we'll see you guys in next year, and we will show what we launched.
Exciting.
Thanks.
We hope so very much, Timur. Thank you. And Birjan?
Yeah, thank you for the amazing moderation, amazing topics, ideas. From my side, I'd like to add that I'm very grateful for the organizers here, and it's actually first time being here in Kyrgyzstan. So
Same
it's
here.
very warm, yeah, very warm country, and much warmer people. So I'm very happy to be here, and from my side, I would like to invite all the business, financial institutions, investors, to work with the our ecosystem with the whole Central Asia region. And we as a AFC from our side are ready to support any kind of initiatives. And so we would like to introduce you the new opportunities of the Central Asia. So when we started to build the AFC, so nobody was believing us, and now we can see the good traction, the good cases, and from the Kyrgyzstan market, they also started to believe, and we are really thankful for the local companies. So here, maybe a colleague from MasterCard, he knows that we are together supporting second-tier banks of the Kazakhstan, conducting the first fintech accelerator for the second-tier banks, and for the next year, maybe by the result of this, the first one, we will open our gates to the whole second-tier banks of the Central Asia region. So we'll be supporting all that initiatives, and thank you, Max, for the moderation.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Well, I think next year has been mentioned so much that I can't wait to see where we will be with strategies next year. Some people may know, but I don't know, and maybe no one knows. But wherever we will be, it will be very good to touch upon these topics again with you guys, with more people. But thank you all. Thank you for joining. August, thanks for dialing in. And this was very interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you.